Hello and welcome to Pock and Rob. This week's video is the second of my remixed series where I've been revisiting my top albums of each decade. About 3 months ago I did a massively expanded favourite albums of the 1980s. I went from 15 albums to 50. I'm going back in time to the 1970s. I'm doing exactly the same thing again. If you haven't already watched that, why not go back and do it again, because I'm not going to spend much time on the albums that were covered in that video. Before I dive into my top 50 70s albums, I'd remind you to subscribe if you've not already done so. Click the thumbs up to like the video and the bell to receive notifications of future content. I would also urge you to tell someone else about the channel or get them to subscribe too. So let's dive in with my 50th favourite album of the 1970s, and it's Who's Next from 1971. This is, for me, probably the only Who album that I think is genuinely essential. Story goes that they had spent ages practicing the music that was on here in live performances, and it shows by the strength of the songs. Who's Next at number 50. Number 49, it's Led Zeppelin with Houses of the Holy. This is an album that I've always loved half of because it was on the remasters compilation, so that's Jamaica, The Song Remains the Same, No Quarter, and The Rain Song. But I enjoy all the other tracks on it as well, like The Crunge and The Ocean. It's my number 49. Number 48 is an album that I talked about in a ranking of this artist's top 15 albums for me. It's Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only the Piano Player by Elton John. At 47 is an album I've only just become familiar with. It's Stage Fright by The Band. This is the 50th anniversary edition that saw Robbie Robertson, who died very recently, rejigging the order. The order makes more sense to me now, actually, than hearing it in the other format. I like the order that this has been put in. It seems more coherent. And Stage Fright, my number 47. Number 46 is an artist who's already appeared on this list. It's Honky Chateau by Elton John. I don't own this on vinyl. And this is just a great album. Again, you probably know Rocket Man, and you may well know Honky Cat, but the rest of the album is better than those two singles. Number 45, it's the first of the Beatles to appear on this list. It's Ringo's Ringo album. 1973, coming up for its 50th anniversary later this year. I'm sure he's going to do something with this. It features all four of the Beatles on here somewhere, and it's a really good album and Ringo's greatest achievement post-Beatles. Number 45. Number 44, his bandmate, and some people would have this far higher than me. It's Imagine by Lennon. But I think Imagine is somewhat overrated, both the song and the album. And I've got to admit, How Do You Sleep makes me feel uncomfortable when I listen to it because I'm a McCartney fan. Imagine, number 44. At number 43, his third appearance on this list so far for Elton John and his self-titled debut from 1970. This is a really good album, and again, you know Your Song, but there's better stuff on here than Your Song, which has become overplayed. Strong album, my number 43. Number 42, it's Ommadawn by Mike Oldfield. This is a stunningly beautiful piece of music. I watched a video the other day. First time I've actually seen anybody do a Mike Oldfield album ranking, and they place this at number 1. And whilst I don't agree, I do find it hard to argue with it. It's probably my second favourite Mike Oldfield album. There's another one to come. But Ommadawn, stunningly beautiful piece of music, and it's not even undone by On Horseback on the end of side 2, which is just a cutesy, fun song. Ommadawn, number 42. Number 41, I have placed Pour Down Like Silver by Richard and Linda Thompson. Now this I find a difficult listen at times, not least the 8-minute The Night Comes In, from which the album gets its title. But Hard Luck Stories and Jet Plane in a Rocking Chair and For Shame of Doing Wrong and The Streets of Paradise, this is actually it's a pretty beautiful album, not to mention Dimming of the Day, which is just gorgeous. It's my number 41. Now we enter the top 40, and at number 40, Physical Graffiti by Led Zeppelin. This is the double album of material that was recorded from 1973 onwards, plus a load of outtakes, which includes Houses of the Holy, which was not finished by the time of its parent title album. The title track Houses of the Holy is not on Houses of the Holy, it's on Physical Graffiti, and it's one of the reasons why it's a better album. But Trampled Underfoot and The Fantastic Kashmir and 10 Years Gone and Boogie with Stew, this is a great double album. It was on my double albums list, and it's my number 40 1970s album. Number 39 is an album that I used to dislike, I grew to like, and then the 50th anniversary came out and saw it all rejigged and remixed. This is The Man Who Sold the World, or as it says on my copy, Metropolist, by David Bowie, from 1970. It's an album that's massively grown on me. Not just the title track, but all the Mad Men, black country rock, the width of a circle. It's got better and better as I've got older and older. Metropolist, or The Man Who Sold the World, my number 39. Number 38, album that I have known ever since I became a fan of this individual. It was the third album that I listened to them, because I listened to them in order. I've said this many times. Elvis Costello and the Attractions Armed Forces from 1979. Oliver's Army's on here. Now, Oliver's Army, he has now self-cancelled. There is some questionable lyrics in it, but I still love the song. I love Accidents Will Happen, Chemistry Class, and Two Little Hitlers, and Party Girl, and Green Shirt, and it's just great pop album. Armed Forces, number 38. Number 37, the first entry on this list from Slade with Old New Borrowed and Blue from 1974. This has got an absolutely stunning 4-track opening run with Just a Little Bit, When the Lights Go Out, My Town, and Find Yourself Another Rainbow. And then you've still got Every Day and My Friends Stand to Come, the hit singles from it. And it's just a really enjoyable album. It's my number 37, Old New Borrowed and Blue by Slade. Number 36, we get back to another Beatle. And it's Paul McCartney with his debut, McCartney. It's wonky, it's ramshackle in places, he plays everything on it, he sings almost everything on it. And even the closing track, Queen of Crore, I've grown to actually really appreciate. This is a half-speed mastered version. And of course it's got Maybe I'm Amazed. And it is the best track on here. But I really enjoy listening to McCartney. My number 36. And one place ahead, it's another Beatle two-header. It's Plastic Ono Band. This was John Lennon's debut. So this is an uncomfortable listen. It's taken me a very long time to appreciate it. I don't think I've quite got to the point where I love it, but I do think it is a better record than everything else I've had on this list. This is Lennon working out some issues. I don't think the playing is brilliant on it, but it's raw. I mean, McCartney is a bit raw, but this is kind of rubs salt into your scars and wounds raw. Plastic Ono Band, my number 35. At number 34 from 1975, it's ABBA, the self-titled third album from ABBA. And Mamma Mia and SOS are the standouts. But So Long and Tropical Loveland and Rock Me, this is the point at which ABBA became good. Because as enjoyable as Waterloo the song is, the album's pretty rank. And actually so is the very first one, Ring Ring. ABBA is at number 35, and I'm going to stick with them for number 34 for the album that came straight afterwards and is their best. It's Arrival. So this is Dancing Queen and Knowing Me, Knowing You, Money, Money, Money. Those are your hits. But then we've got When I Kissed the Teacher, slightly uncomfortable these days. The beautiful My Love, My Life. The title track, Arrival, which is an instrumental and is really, really good. And it's their best album. And I've placed it at number 33. At number 32, I've only recently acquired this. My favourite album by this band, Man Machine by Kraftwerk. This is just stunning. And it contains the model, which is the track you know. But it also has the robots and the title track. And it's just a really strong album. I think it's the best thing that Kraftwerk did. It's my number 32. Number 31, we're back with the Beatles for Venus and Mars by Wings. This is the follow-up to Band on the Run. It was a number one hit album both sides of the Atlantic. It has Listen to What the Man Said, huge hit. But it's quite a coherent album, certainly side one. I mean, side one does outstrip side two. Venus and Mars, number 31. At number 30, the highest placing on this list for Mike Oldfield with Platinum. Not many people put Platinum as their favourite Mike Oldfield album, but they're not me. So the whole of side one, that one long piece, that on many later versions of the album is listed as separate 4 parts, on this version is listed as just one. But this is such an early version that it also contains Sally. My version has got Sally on it. Later versions, he excised that track and replaced it with Into Wonderland. Platinum, my favourite Mike Oldfield album, comes in at number 30. At number 29, the second and final inclusion on this list from Slade for In Flame. It's got How Does It Feel, which Noel Gallagher cited as one of the best tracks ever written, and the hit single of Far, Far Away, which should have been a hit number 1. Slade in Flame, I think it's a shame that everything pretty much started to decline and slide after this record, because I think this is where they reached their creative peak. Slade in Flame, my number 29. Number 28, Night at the Opera by Queen. Bohemian Rhapsody is clearly the standout track, but this is a timeless album that I've known and loved for 35 years, and if anything, the presence of Bohemian Rhapsody has meant that it's a little bit overdone. It's usually cited as Queen's best album, but it's not my favourite Queen album, as I revealed on my Queen ranking. I think I actually placed it at number 2, which surprises me because in this listing, it's not my second favourite Queen album. I think that just goes to show that much fun as doing these rankings are, they are subject to change and whim. Night at the Opera, number 28. Number 27, it's a double album. It's Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. If this were a single, as I did in my Reimagined video, then this would be way higher. But for me, there's too much filler on this, like Jamaica Jerk Off and Your Sister Can't Twist Because She Can Rock and Roll, and All the Youngest Girls Love Alice, and a song I really loathe, which is Benny and the Jets. Too much filler means that it's only number 27 on this list and not my favourite Elton album. If it were a single, it would be way up there. Number 27, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. Number 26, I have placed another double album. It's The Wall by Pink Floyd. There's been times when I have found this album impossible to listen to because it is actually incredibly depressing. However, it is a masterpiece. And for all of the many faults of Roger Waters, this is his vision writ large, and it's an absolutely terrific album, The Wall. It's my number 26. Pink Floyd, as my number 25, is the album they released in 1975. It's Wish You Were Here. This is a 5-track album, although arguably only a 4-track album, as the album is bookended with Shine On You Crazy Diamond, parts 1 to 6, and then parts 7 to 12. But in between are Have a Cigar and the title track, Wish You Were Here, which is one of my favourite Pink Floyd tracks. It's my number 25. At number 24, it's the debut album from Elvis Costello. It's My Aim Is True. It's a really fine album with great tracks on it, not just the well-known stuff like Allison or Less Than Zero, but Welcome to the Working Week and Miracle Man and I'm Not Angry and Waiting for the End of the World. Blistering debut, one of the best debuts of all time, which I think I talked about on that particular video that I did of my top 15 debut albums. My Aim Is True, number 24. At number 23, it's Queen. Now, on my Queen ranking, I had this lower than Night at the Opera, but it just shows that these lists really do go in flux, because this is News of the World. Of course, it's got We Will Rock You and We're the Champions on it, along with Spread Your Wings and Sheer Heart Attack, which was not on the Sheer Heart Attack album. It's really good album. News of the World, for me, the last genuinely great album that Queen did until their swan song, Innuendo. News of the World, number 23. Number 22, an album that I have grown to appreciate as I've gotten older, and it's a difficult album to get into on first listen. It's Diamond Dogs by David Bowie. I don't own a vinyl copy, but I would very much like one. This is a dark album. The opening track, Future Legends, sets the scene of this dystopia, and it makes you uncomfortable. And when I was younger, I didn't want that uncomfortableness. Rebel Rebel, 1984, Big Brother, Chant of the Ever-Circling Skeletal Family. It's, like I say, dystopian, but it's an album I've grown to really appreciate. And sticking with Bowie for the next entry on this list, which is Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. This is my half-speed master edition. I think my affection for Ziggy Stardust is dimmed slightly by the fact that I've never, ever really liked Suffragette City. But I like the title track. I adore Rock and Roll Suicide. 5 years is a great way to open stuff. And it's a great concept album. One of the best concept albums of the 70s by far. Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars is my number 21. Number 20 is from 1975. It's the last hurrah for me of both the Elton John Band and the last truly brilliant Elton John album, Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy. Another concept album written in the order that it's presented on the album by Bernie Taupin for his lyrics, and then Elton John added the music. But what a great combination. The follow-up album to this, which was a contractual obligation, is Rock of the Westies. Doesn't hold a candle to how good Captain Fantastic was. And he basically dismissed half the band after this. So this was the end of regular involvement from Dee Murray and Nigel Olsson. The Elton John Band were bigger than Elton. And Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy proves it for me. It's my number 20. And number 19 is the first on this list that was on my original top 15 of the 70s. It's slipped down only a little bit, but that's just because I've refamiliarised myself with some other albums that have kind of come back in. And it's what was originally 15. It's There Goes Rhyming Simon by Paul Simon from 1973. I'm not going to spend a long time talking about these albums that were in my top 15, because you can go back and watch that by clicking on that link. But There Goes Rhyming Simon is now number 19. And number 18 is an album that I've always liked, but I have come to appreciate even more because this sets the template for what the band was about to become. It's Queen 2. I don't think they ever bettered this in their entire career. And it is so important in their history that this very image became the video for Bohemian Rhapsody. They recreated it for One Vision. It is the template for what Queen were to become over the ensuing 20 or so years. Side 2 alone would merit its place in this top 50, but side 1, which is written by May and Taylor, between them, is also great stuff. The white and the black sides. Queen 2, for me, they never bettered it. And it's my number 18. Number 17 is another album that has slipped out of my top 15. It's Tapestry by Carole King. At one point, the best-selling album of all time. Go back and watch the video if you want to see what I said about Tapestry last time. And number 16, it's Bowie's Station to Station from 1976. This is the album that he claims he didn't remember recording. It's a 6-track album. The opening, Station to Station, is effectively 2 brilliant pieces mashed together. We have Word on a Wing, TVC 15, Golden Years, which is just an absolutely divine single. And Station to Station is my number 16. So into the top 15, and we're going to find out what supplanted those 2 that fell out. And it's Madman Across the Water, Elton John's finest album. There's no fat on this album at all. Tiny Dancer, which is the best known song, is an amazing piece of work. But so is Madman Across the Water and Leave On and All the Nasties and the beautiful final track, Goodbye. It's a tight, cohesive statement. It marks the first appearances of what would become the Elton John band, as this is the first time that Davy Johnston appears on an Elton John album. From this point on, he was more or less firing on all cylinders for the rest of the time that they were a unit. Madman Across the Water, my number 15. And at number 14, an album that I forget is actually a 70s release. It wasn't in my top 15 and it wasn't even under consideration because I had negative feelings about this album, but something has rescued it and sees it hit number 14. It's this behemoth, Let It Be. This is my Let It Be Deluxe Edition box set with the Giles Martin remix on it. And there's so much negativity about this record. It was the Beatles' final album. It documents their breakup, but the Get Back film of Peter Jackson rescues it. The Giles Martin remix is that whilst they don't exactly despectrise the album, and I wish somebody would, so thanks to that documentary, I've got a refound appreciation for Let It Be, and this whole box set really helps. Let It Be, sneaking in at number 14. So from this point forward, everything else was in my original top 15. They just shifted places around a bit. And at number 13, originally number 12, is Low by David Bowie. At number 12, originally number 9, is This Year's Model by Elvis Costello and the Attractions. At number 11, formerly at number 10, is London Calling from The Clash. Into my top 10 and dropping a couple of places from where it was originally placed at number 8 to 10, Rumours by Fleetwood Mac. At number 9, and this has dropped from number 4, and that's because the albums that are now above it I've listened to more recently perhaps, or found more depth in. Led Zeppelin 4. At number 8, and climbing from its original position at number 13, is Ram. The half-speed master has opened up new sounds on this to me, and I haven't listened to it for a while, and that's probably increased its placing, ironically enough, mainly because I've listened to it so often that it become too familiar. So its greatness has improved by me not listening to it for probably about a year. At number 7, dropping one place, Bad Out of Hell by Meatloaf. At number 6, climbing up from number 11, it's Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd, their greatest album. At number 5, exactly where it was before, I Want to See the Bright Lights Tonight by Richard and Linda Thompson. I make a plea every time that this is probably the album you know the least on this record list, and actually probably the one that you should check out the most as a result. At number 4, climbing up from number 7, Blood on the Tracks. And then I've decided to cheat. Now, originally I did do a proper ranking of these 3 albums, but I can't separate them at the moment. There's just something, they each scratch a very different itch. And so, joint number 1s for Hunky Dory. This is my copy. It happens to be the Rock Galaxy double that also includes another copy of Ziggy. But Hunky Dory is Bowie's finest record. Then we have the itch that's scratched by familiarity and just knowing how good it is, which is Band on the Run. And then finally, what was originally number 2, but is now joint number 1 because I just can't separate it, it's All Things Must Pass. I do really place All Things Must Pass and Band on the Run on a par with each other. So that concludes my now top 50 albums of the 1970s. It's not a stretch to say that it wouldn't have been a massive difficulty to do a top 100. The album chart was invented in 1956, which means that 1970 it was 14 years old. Talk about hitting your adolescence and growth periods, because the 70s was the point at which the album ruled the roost. Before I go, I'll just remind you to subscribe, like, and hit the bell. Share the channel with other people. It would be absolutely wonderful if before Christmas 2023, I could hit 100 subscribers. So please share the channel with somebody else who you think might like my inane content. I've got loads of stuff planned coming up, and next month we'll see the final part of my ranking the tracks of Paul McCartney's solo releases, at least as far as we know to date. But until the next video, thanks for watching.